Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, guys. Sadly, we're winding down this morning, but as we wind down this morning with our conversation, we are talking to Mr. Ashworth Jack. And this morning, we're discussing a number of things that are happening in Tobago space. One of those things being that the budget is being presented this morning. But before we even get into the budget, have you been paying attention to this internal TPP elections?
Yeah, well, I know about it.
Right. Now, we have seen, quite surprising, some persons putting themselves forward, specifically for the position of chairman of the party. I just spoke to Attorney Chrislyn Moore. We see that Mr. Trevor James is also putting his hat in the ring for chairman, and we have Natasha Ann second, who is also going to put her hat in the ring. Now, what we have noticed is that a number of those core executive positions, we have sitting politicians vying for those positions. In your experience as political leader of the TOP, is it really in the best interest of a party to have so many sitting politicians that are in executive positions on the actual party executive?
I want to be very careful with that because it can give the impression that you subtly are campaigning for one instead of
Okay.
the other. But I think what it does for me, what it says though is that to have those high-ranking positions in the government and the organization calls for a lot of time and sacrifice. And there's a possibility that one might suffer over the other.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago. Before we left for the break, I was asking Mr. Jack how he felt, or to offer his opinion and perspective on having so many members of the THA executive, sitting politicians, as executive members of the political party.
Yeah, and I was saying that that issue need to be taken into perspective. It is pretty normal that a number in these political organizations, some of the most high-profile members of the organization become ministers or secretaries. It had happened in Tobago under the last administration for quite a while. Secretary for Tourism was the chairman of the party for quite a while. And it happens in Trinidad because of the amount of sacrifice and work. They are usually rewarded with ministerial or secretarial responsibilities. But it also, especially in a new organization, it speaks to a number of work, a lot of work that need to be done to put it. And so I think one of the things that need to be done is that whosoever becomes chairman of these new organizations have to be able to command the respect of the majority of not only the membership, but also in this case, which is a unique case where an organization has been built while in government. Normally you build an organization to get government. This organization is in government while it has been built. And so you find that will call for a different kind of commitment, that kind of thing. But when I saw the list, it also tells me that there's a lot of interest in the organization when you see the number of persons offering themselves, which is also a good thing. I just want to guard against the outcome of the election, that people don't take it too personal. That it's an internal election. At the end of the internal election, there will be a winner and there will be losers. But it must be seen in the spirit of camaraderie, that we are all working for the same purpose. But yes, some persons will have won, and the experience and all that of all the persons will be needed on a number of different committees and all that in order to give the organization the kind of fillip that it needs to push it forward.
All right. And this morning, we are seeing the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly fulfilling that mandate of Act 40 of 1996 by presenting that budget for fiscal 2024-2025. Now, do you have any perspectives on this administration choosing this time around to focus on human capital development for this particular
Okay,
budget?
there are two things I want to start off by saying I've objected to something from '96 to now, and I continue to object to it. There is no Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. There's none. There have never been, and there is none present. There's a Chief Secretary of Tobago. The Tobago House of Assembly is the institution. It is like saying the Prime Minister of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. So I just want to credit up for Tobagonians, because I'm seeing it done not only by persons on the outside, but even people within the administration.
Right.
And so that is one. The issue of choosing human resource development as a theme for this budget becomes very important, because everything else hinges on that. Everything else hinges on that. In that, once that human resource is developed, because when you go around the island, there are a number of persons, young and not even so young, that are either unemployed or underemployed. And in order for us as an island to move forward, you have to use the most of your human resource. Of course, that will have to be coupled with capital expenditure, because if you only have human resource and no capital expenditure to carry out the work of the human resource, then of course you are at the same place. But I think in looking at that as the theme of this budget, there's something else that for me becomes very, very important. When you look at the Tobago's allocation of the budget, which is about 4.03% of the budget, and of that which works about just over $2 billion, of course, about 2 point something billion dollars, normally about 2.2, 2.4. But yet your capital expenditure is just about 260 to $300 million. And that, again, is going to have an adverse effect on how much you can do. You have to take into consideration that the administration took over and had outstanding bills of in excess of $1 billion. So even if you took all the capital expenditure money, because their development money is a very strange money. It is to pay salaries, wages, to pay your rent, to pay things like your utility bills and stuff like that. So there's very little flexibility in that area. But in building that out, you also find a situation where there are too many, and I know that everybody is waiting and hoping that the Constitutional Amendment Bill is passed. And that will also take up a lot of the new human resource because of the new responsibilities. But I have a different take. I have been in this thing since I was a very, very young boy. And I've seen the expectation being dashed time and time again. And my contention with this is that if any government is serious about giving Tobago internal self-government, and it's taken as long as it have, from 1977 to now, we're almost 50 years. There are things that can be done. Act number 40 of 1996 was a step in the right direction. But there are a number of things that could and should be done in the meantime to show that we're serious about giving Tobago autonomy. For example, you allow the things that are in the fifth schedule, all the laws of Trinidad and Tobago that still says a minister shall have. Mm-hmm. There should be amendment to those acts to allow that to be done by the Tobago House of Assembly. Then you will show that you're serious about giving Tobago. Let's look at a couple of cases in point. Tongue Country. Tongue Country is in the fifth schedule. Everything is in place. And every couple of years there's a threat. I call it a threat to give you Tongue Country. And then there's a holdback. But the question is, if Tobago does not have Tongue Country as its as part of its core development tool. It means that every time Tobago wants to do something, and I'm hearing the issue of the airport, not beside the airport, the hotels to be constructed and stuff like that. And if you don't have control over the speed with which those approvals are given, and if there's an adversarial relationship with a government in Trinidad, it means that with the best intent, you will be stymied. And so all the human resource that you would have put together and you would have been trained, you would end up losing them because trained people find jobs. And the world have become so small. Look at what is happening with our nurses and other healthcare professionals. Almost on a yearly basis, a large number of them migrate because there are better opportunities. And it will happen with a lot of other areas once the opportunities for self-realization isn't there.
Right. And let's move on to what we may see being asked today compared to what we are accustomed getting.
Well, and that's the other thing I was. In fact, this was in the train of thought.
Right.
I expect the budget to request in the vicinity of $5 billion, and I expect to get 2 point something. And that is the trend. That has been the trend since 1996 when the Act Number 40 came in. For people who don't know, before Act Number 40, the percentage of the budget that came to Tobago was in the vicinity of 1.8 to the highest 2.2. That is where the Dispute Resolution Commission was written into the Act and triggered by Mr. Charles and the administration to which I belong. And then it came out that in 2020, the Dispute Resolution Commission would have given its ruling, and that says you must get no less than 4.03 to a high of 6.9. Of course, you know, you always get 4.03. 1-2 times you get probably 4.05, 4.06 kind of thing. But the question that one must ask oneself is this: is Tobago given the best opportunities to be able to raise additional revenue? And that's where I was talking about Tobago, some of those things being freed up, so that if you have more hotels being built in Tobago, management position and all the other positions, then you will find yourself in a position where more people are being able to employ. You will have more taxes paid in Tobago, or should be paid. And that again brings me to something that is in the Act that speaks to the financial rules of the Assembly. Within 3 months of the Act Number 40 of 1996 being actualized, after December 1996, the election was in December 1996. Within 3 months, the financial rules were sent to the government for approval. We are in 2004. It's 28 years later. So in 2024, those financial rules have never been approved. When the next administration came in 2001, they too sent the financial rules. Still, it's not done. All those things will have an impact onto how the kind of work you can do. And then you have another situation where a number of ministries in Trinidad have responsibility for approving, let's say, for instance, our export license. And if you can't do that, and the ministries in Trinidad decide, I'm not giving you one, your best look at your export, in this case at Study Park. You can't export. And therefore, this is a prime area where you could be making money, because you could borrow money, buy your new equipment, have enough to both do local and to do regional. And that would have brought in the vicinity of $300 million per year. And so all those things have to be taken into consideration, and the acts that have responsibility for things that impact the lives of Tobagonians. You have to amend those acts and give those responsibility to the Tobago House of Assembly.
But how effective is it to go to the Assembly legislature to present a budget for a particular figure that we know
It's frustrating.
we are not going to get?
It is frustrating.
Is it that we are just seeing a situation where we're hearing the chief secretary talk about lofty ideas and policies, knowing that he would not be able to get the type of money it takes to execute that? So where do we draw the line between what's fiction and what's reality when the budget is being presented?
I think that that's such a fantastic question, because what you do, administrations, I don't care which one of them, whichever Secretary of Finance goes to the House, they go to the House and they present what they think Tobago needs to be able to take care of its developmental needs, and without knowing what the national budget will be. And at the end of that, they will write a national budget attended. This is what we're giving you. But you don't have much will room. So if you ask me, and I was very much involved in the writing of Act number 40 of 1996. And of course, this is not what went to the Parliament. This is a whole watered-down version of what went, because they didn't have the numbers in order to get the internal self-government that went to the House, because the then PNM administration voted against all that power for Tobago. And so I think one of the things that need to be revisited is that maybe the government need to have a conversation with the Tobago House of Assembly prior to the budget and says, listen, our estimated budgetary figures is 60 billion. Your share of that is 2.2 or 4.03. And therefore, a more realistic thing for Tobago will be knowing in advance what you're expected to receive, and therefore write a budget based on that. That, coupled with the other things with which we were just mentioning about allowing Tobago to raise its own revenue. One of the things that people don't understand is that the majority of Tobago revenues are paid in Trinidad. Every bank that operates in Tobago pays all its taxes in Trinidad. All your TNTEC bills, your TSTT bills, all your VAT, and all that. The money is not registered as part of the Tobago economy. It is registered in Trinidad. I remember when they were building what used to be the Hilton, which is a plantation. In that year, the property tax, not property tax, sorry, it's the sales tax in that year was more than the Tobago development budget. And that is what Tobago paid, but their head office was in Port of Spain. So all that money was paid in and then put in into taxes as well as the general. And you look as though Tobago doesn't. All the cars, 90% of the cars that are on the roads in Tobago, they are purchased in Trinidad, and therefore all those is not registered as a Tobago's contribution to the national economy. And when you take that along with the stifling of the other things, what do you have? Have you heard any government speak about the gas finds outside of Costara and say, look, okay, this is how Tobago would be affected? You say, okay, we'll put all in the big pool, and you give your 4.03. Those things, Tobago must be aware that no, it can't work like that. It has happened like that in the past, where a lot of the gas finds, not the oil finds, if you are to be going to live in the east, as indeed you are, you will recognize if you're going up in the night, straight across from the study park area, you will see the lights burning. That can't be in the Trinidad waters, that is in Tobago. What is the situation with negotiations for Barbados fishing in Tobago waters? How does that affect? Is there compensation from the government, since that is stuff that is taken away from Tobago? So there are a number of things that Tobago needs to do in order to one, show its real contribution to the economy, two, to realize its full potential, and three, the issue of waiting on an internal self-government bill that will always fall short when there are things that could be done now. in order to show that you're serious about giving Tobago this autonomy and therefore allow Tobago to go.
Right. And as we wrap up this morning's discussion, are there any lessons that you think this administration has learned from its past two budgets that we can or we may see implemented in this presentation this morning?
Well, I don't want to play a god. I'll try to think into people's head, but what I think the issue of concentration on human development is very important, because a lot of the public outcry is really about people being unemployed and underemployed. And so what the question still remains, how is it going to be funded?
Right.
And that is my biggest concern. And the funding of that could take place if there's a freeing up of some of the regulations in terms of not really freeing up, but allowing some of those things to be done in Tobago. Because if you're a government wanting to do things for your island, you will recognize that these are important, and so it goes through the system very quickly in terms of the approval process. And I want to ask the country a simple question. If Trinidad and Tobago situations was reversed and all the decisions were made in Scarborough instead of Port of Spain, do you think that our brothers and sisters in Trinidad would have sat down and just say, well, there is one country, and wait? It would not have happened. And therefore, we in Tobago have to become a lot more conscious. We have to take away the politics of division, the politics of hate. It's almost as though people hate you because you don't belong to the same organization. People threaten you, people waiting for you to be able to pull you down. And that is part of the problem that allows us not to be united. Because as a united people, the issue of self-governance would have come.
Right. All right. Well, we want to thank you for your contribution on what we may be able to look forward to this morning, and we would be paying attention. And again, you can exclusively view that budget presentation here on Tobago Updates. Mr. Jack, I want to thank you for coming in this morning and giving us your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Guys, we want to thank you for sticking with us this morning. Thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments. And thank you for doing all that you can and continue to do to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. And remember, you can catch us on Tobago Updates Television as well as our Facebook and YouTube pages. Guys, thank you and have a great day.